Hello, world. I'm the mild-mannered madman Brian, and you are listening to episode 1 of my Bipolar reality series. If you suffer from depression, anxiety, irritability, panic attacks, rage episodes, if you identify as crazy or know someone who does, then this podcast might be the right one for you. I'm here to talk about living life with mental health problems and everything that means, from social stigma to treatment, but most important of all, survival. For my first episode, I'm going to talk about my own mental health challenge, bipolar disorder. What it is, what it's like to live with it, and what can be done for people who have the disorder. I would like to make it perfectly clear that I'm not a doctor of any kind. I'm not trying to sell you anything, and I don't have any miracle cure to tell you about. My credibility comes from fighting bipolar disorder for 3 decades. It comes from breaking down countless times and finding my way back to sanity. It comes from knowing the darkest depths of despair and surviving. Now, thanks to the internet, it's all too easy to get information on what bipolar disorder is, at least by definition. However, just in case you don't already know, in general, bipolar disorder describes a serious mental condition that causes dramatic mood swings which alternate between an excited mental state known as mania and a unique form of depression. The disorder is rarely a singular diagnosis, meaning it often has additional diagnoses. For example, schizophrenia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, psychosis, bulimia, and regrettably the list just goes on. This, of course, makes it more challenging to diagnose and treat. Bipolar disorder, which until recently was called manic depressive disorder, has been around for thousands of years. It's not a fad or a trendy diagnosis. Although doctors don't fully understand the cause of the disorder, the consensus seems to be that it's passed on genetically and then triggered by either mental or physical trauma. It affects about 2.6% of the adult population in the United States, and tragically, it bears the highest rate of suicide among mental health disorders. As of today, there are many treatments for the disorder, but there are no cures. There are 3 types of bipolar disorder: type 1, type 2, and the mildest form, which is called cyclothymia. Even though all 3 types have similar symptoms, it's important to understand that how people choose to behave in response to the effects of the disorder can vary a great deal from person to person. It mostly depends on the individual and their environment. The distinctions between each of the types is in the frequency and severity of the episodes. People with cyclothymia experience shifts in mood that alternate between highs and lows, but the shifts are not as dramatic or as severe as those experienced by people with type 1 or 2 bipolar disorder. When it comes to the depression aspect of types 1 and 2, the symptoms are the same. Prolonged episodes of persistent despair and deep sadness, often severe enough to lead to suicidal thoughts and actions. Unlike typical depression, which can be treated with antidepressants alone, bipolar depression requires the use of additional medications known as mood stabilizers to ensure that a manic episode is not triggered by the antidepressant. The manic phase of bipolar disorder can be exciting. Your system gets flooded with a lot of energy, and when the circumstances are favorable, all that energy can be put to good use, creatively, productively, or just to have fun. Yet, someone who is manic can be experiencing things such as rapid fleeting thoughts, insomnia, irritability, panic, confusion, or all of the above. They may start speaking unusually fast, acting impulsively, or even demonstrating reckless behavior that can sometimes escalate to the point of violence or get them hurt. In the case of type 1, Those episodes can be extreme enough to induce hallucinations and psychosis, essentially losing touch with reality. Type 2, which is what I've been diagnosed with, has a milder, less severe manic state called hypomania. All the same elevated moods without the escape from reality. Finally, there are mixed states and rapid cycling. Mixed states involve experiencing both depression and mania at the same time. In these cases, the mania experienced is most likely an anxious or agitated state. Rapid cycling indicates that a person cycles through the manic and depression phases of the disorder at a faster than average pace, sometimes cycling through moods several times in a single day. And that's bipolar disorder. The problem is, simply telling someone that you experience dramatic highs and lows doesn't really cut it. It's like telling someone you have an itch when you've broken your leg. How to explain what it's like? I could tell you that my hypomanic phase is like having attention deficit or post-traumatic stress disorder. I could tell you that my depression phase is like going to my best friend's funeral. I could explain that when I'm experiencing a mixed episode, I become functionally useless. But again, these examples can only hint at what it's like to have bipolar disorder. That's why I came up with an analogy I like to call the swamp and the river. Imagine you are walking along the banks of a large river, and before the shore of that river can turn into dry land, it leads into the depths of a dark, dank swamp, leaving the banks of the river as the only solid ground to travel upon. Now imagine that you want to follow the river along the shore to where it leads. Let's say that it leads you to your happy place, wherever that is for you. Imagine that before you can reach your destination, a storm arises, and heavy rainfall and strong winds push you into the river. The waters are moving swiftly and quickly carry you away before you know what's happened. Your heart begins to race as you struggle to find your way to the shore. But before you can even start to swim in any direction, your body collides with the hidden stones and branches in the river, spinning you around and keeping you from finding your way out. The river is mania, and just like the river, on a good day, it can be fun. On a bad day, it can be deadly. Eventually, the storm passes, and the river slows down, and you make your way back to the shore. You stand up just as the rain-drenched ground gives way beneath you, and you fall backward into the swamp. You are quickly bogged down in the muck and mud in a place that is so dark that everything you see is cloaked in shadows. As you start to make your way back to the path, the weight of every one of your steps gets heavier and heavier as the mud clings to you, making it harder for you to move. You're trapped and lost. The light's too dim to see which way to go, and you are forced to stay there, stuck in the swamp. Your body aches and begs you to rest. You struggle to the point of exhaustion and collapse where you stand. This is depression, where you feel helpless and buried beneath endless pain and sorrow. You later awaken to the foul smell of swamp gas, the sound of flies, and the sensation of mosquitoes attacking your skin. You begin to doubt that you will ever escape. But there's a ray of light breaking through the trees which shows you a path out of the swamp. And though it takes you time, you eventually reach the edge of the swamp at the banks of the river. Unfortunately, you find that you are now even further away from your destination. Sounds like one big dramatic mess, doesn't it? Well, that's what it's like. Mostly pain and confusion intermingled with periods of time when you're stable enough to fix everything that got broke when you were episodic. But it's not all bad news. People with bipolar disorder are often naturally creative, possibly as a result of their experience or genetic predisposition. In fact, Many of history's most notable people were known or were suspected of having bipolar disorder. The father of philosophy, Socrates, was known to have bipolar disorder and even took lithium powder to treat it, something that is still in practice today, thousands of years later. The Protestant Reformation of the Roman Catholic Church was started by Martin Luther, who had bipolar disorder. The musical genius Beethoven wrote many of his greatest works while in episodes of depression. Winston Churchill, who led the British during World War II, Ernest Hemingway, Vincent van Gogh, the godfather of science, Sir Isaac Newton, Ada Lovelace, the first computer programmer, all of them known to have bipolar disorder either by diagnosis or according to historical accounts relating to the symptoms of the disorder. I suspect that their accomplishments had at least something to do with their disorder. I know it gave them, just as it's given me, a unique emotional perspective, a sort of unsettled nature which forces me to constantly change how I see the world around me. I believe it's the mind's attempt to reconcile the pain and confusion of bipolar disorder by giving it purpose. For me, essentially, if there's a reason for my suffering, then I can tolerate it. It's the pointless suffering that drives me nuts. However, the only time my suffering is pointless is when it doesn't manage to help anyone. That's why I'm recording these podcasts. It not only helps others understand bipolar disorder, but it also helps me to talk about it. It's good, inexpensive therapy. Look, a lot of things can happen when a mind is forced to deal with prolonged emotional intensity, and most of those things aren't good. That's why survival requires a plan, one that considers all the aspects of your mental and physical well-being in the process. The most important thing I can tell you about managing bipolar disorder is that it's the art of managing stress, because stress not only activates existing triggers, it can also create new ones. What I'm going to share with you next is a list of 7 things you can do to help yourself or someone else who is struggling with bipolar disorder. In fact, most of these suggestions can be used to help anyone with any kind of mental health disorder. The first 3 suggestions are simple, obvious even, but incredibly important. Suggestion number 1, sleep. It's when you're sleeping that your body reconciles all the neurochemicals it uses to help you maintain a healthy state of mind. So, if you're not sleeping well enough, you can expect to have a less than stable mind. Certainly not stable enough to cope with the emotional turbulences of bipolar disorder. Suggestion number 2, diet. I'm not going to make suggestions about what you should eat here. I believe the best diet varies by individual, their genetics, and their lifestyle. What I am going to suggest is a few things that you should be very careful about including in your diet, starting with alcohol. If you have bipolar disorder or any mental health disorder, alcohol is dangerous to you. It will not only impair your judgment, it will make depression worse, and it will disrupt your sleep, which, as I mentioned before, is essential to your mental stability. If you must drink, do so in moderation and never while taking medications for bipolar disorder or any other mental health condition. For those of you who drink daily and are unable to go without a drink for more than a day, I highly recommend you stop drinking as soon as possible. Also, caffeine and nicotine, along with herbal stimulants that you might take for dieting or fitness, can trigger and even escalate a manic or mixed episode, so be careful with these drugs. Lastly, to be completely fair, prescription pharmaceuticals can be just as dangerous as illegal street drugs when not administered properly. Make sure that you're communicating honestly with your doctor about your reactions to any medications that you're taking, whether he prescribed them to you or someone else did. There is an extremely high rate of addiction among those with bipolar disorder, so keep that in mind. Suggestion number 3, exercise. It's recommended that everyone exercises 30 minutes a day to maintain overall health. When dealing with bipolar disorder, it can be even more helpful. A good run can burn off the energy of a manic episode and help improve the quality of your sleep. A nice walk when you're depressed can help increase your energy and give your mind something simple and pleasant to focus on. No matter what sort of physical activity you choose, it can help you to deal with mental health issues just by reducing stress. So find a team to join or start a new outdoor hobby. Just create a habit of keeping your body in motion. I've learned that overcoming the overwhelming emotions of bipolar disorder is a lot easier when you keep moving forward, both mentally and physically. My next two suggestions are my favorites. Together, they have done me more good than I have words to describe. Suggestion number 4, meditation. As I said before, managing bipolar disorder is the art of managing stress, and I have yet to find anything more helpful in that regard than meditation. I'm not suggesting you become a Zen master or a New Age guru. Just find a quiet place, clear your thoughts, and breathe. Allow your mind to reset and find balance. With practice, it can help you negate existing triggers and prevent new ones from being created. It helps me after going through a rough episode to reset my mind and keep my sanity. If you don't already know how to practice meditation, then learn. You won't regret it. It can help improve your overall quality of life with or without a mental health disorder, so it's worth your time either way. There's tons of information, books, and audio files out there to help you get started. Just search the web for meditation and find something that works for you. Suggestion number 5, expression. Given the relentless volumes of emotional garbage you're likely to encounter if you're bipolar, it's imperative that you find a way to express and thereby process all those emotions. Your logical brain can't deal with them correctly. It doesn't understand emotions, but your creative brain does. The artist in you knows how to process those emotions, and it's up to you to trust it. Find your art. Write, paint, sing, dance, create, emote, and embrace your emotions by converting your pain into beauty. My last two suggestions are ones that require outside help. Suggestion number 6 is support. By this I mean people who are willing to help you, that you are willing to trust. It doesn't matter if these people are friends, family, medical professionals, or members of a support group. When things get tough, and unfortunately they will, you'll want to have someone stable, preferably more than one around you, who understands and won't condemn you for your moments of insanity. Someone you in turn respect by listening to them. They can be there to help keep you grounded when your mind is in chaos. Think of them as an anchor or a safety net. Suggestion number 7, medical help. As much as I would like to tell you that most people with bipolar disorder get along just fine without any medication or treatment, that, my friends, would be a lie. If you have or believe you may have bipolar disorder, please find a professional to help you find a treatment. It doesn't have to be a pharmaceutical treatment, talk therapy, or an extended stay in a padded room. It's whatever treatment works best for you. There are all kinds of doctors that can help you seek out treatment. General practitioners, psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists. You could even consult a witch doctor or a priest. Not that I can vouch personally for those last two, but most doctors can help you begin treatment. Again, there are no cures for this disorder. However, treatment can make the difference between continual suffering and successfully living your life. I've tried to cover the basics here, what bipolar disorder is, what it's like, and how to help. I'll be taking the time to cover most of these subjects in more depth in future episodes. Bipolar disorder is a serious mental health challenge that affects many people, but throughout history, men and women have proved that bipolar disorder doesn't have to result in tragedy. It takes understanding that the view of the world through bipolar eyes is often shaded by a barrage of complex emotions that the average person will thankfully never know. It takes understanding that their reality gets skewed by intense episodes of overwhelming mood shifts. Yet, those who manage to wield their pain despite the chaos in their mind are often catalysts for important change, bringing forth new ideas from their unique perspectives, capable of creating extraordinary art and discovering things beyond the realms of current thought and understanding. Although there's no cure, every day new discoveries are made and new treatments are developed all the time. Living life with bipolar disorder is a serious challenge, but with the right approach, it's manageable. One last thing. For those of you out there struggling to find the strength to keep fighting, know that you are not alone. You stand side by side with a sea of souls that is millions strong. We face the day together, each of us in our own places, each of us in our own way, but together. Stay strong, live well, and never give up. I'm the mild-mannered madman Brian, and thank you for listening.